They're all
on different platforms.
So,
Ah,
so we're doing it this way
interesting.
until we figure out. Yeah.
Okay.
3, 2, 1, you're gonna start.
Okay.
Right.
We're starting. Friends.
Yes.
Hello. Happy New Year. Since
Happy
I was
New
in
Year.
last week. I wanted to start by, we talk about the recipe first, since most of you guys know what it is, but we did a spicy sausage, potato and kale soup today.
It's very good.
Yeah, and then one of the things that I like about soups, one, you can put a lot of different meats, veggies, garlic, onions, which are really great for immunity and all that. But also, I always sub my chicken broth for bone broth. And so even if you don't have a lot of protein in the soup itself, you have like 9 grams of protein in every cup of bone broth. And it tastes just like chicken broth.
Do you have any particular brands of chicken broth?
I prefer the one from Costco. I know everybody goes to Costco, but theirs is the chickens are like free range organic, and they simmer it for a really long time, so you get all of the gelatin and the goodness out of the bones. Kettle and Fire is another good brand. They're just a little pricier, and then I also like Aldi's brand. They have an organic bone broth as well. So, and they've got Kirkland or Costco doesn't have beef, but Aldi, they do have an organic beef bone broth if you want beef for like chilies and things like that. So you can also make it yourself, but that's a lot harder. So
That's amazing.
yeah, so we get a decent chunk of protein in like a warm, cozy soup. It's rainy and dreary outside today, and so yeah, it's a good, well-balanced meal for us today. And then I wanted to talk, Dr. J talked a little bit about habits and what that looks like last week. I really love Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's where both of us have kind of gotten a lot of our ideas about habits and how to set them. But as we start talking about, like today we're talking about hydration. Next week we'll talk about breathing with Jordan. And so as we think about incorporating some of these things in or continuing to improve them, how do we do that? And so he talks about habits. Let's see, there's a habit loop that he talks about where it starts with a cue, and then there's a craving, and then there's a response, and then there's a reward. And so as we think about each of like the small habits that we are trying to start incorporating or continue bettering this year, as we talk about hydration today, like how can we, something I wanted to kind of discuss afterwards and be thinking about is how can we make it obvious? So a lot of us have our awesome cups, and that makes it really obvious, like it's right there in front of us. But there may be other ways. Yeah, everybody has theirs. There may be other ways that you can make it obvious. Maybe you have one in your car that's different from the one in your house or whatever. And then making it attractive, which I will say the fun cups, they do make it
More fun.
Fun.
Especially if there's a straw in the handle.
A straw, yeah. And that is making it easy. So I think they've like basically done studies on like sipping versus drinking out of a straw. Like you will drink more if you have a straw in your cup.
Yeah.
That's another way to make it easy. And then the reward is making it satisfying. So do we need to add something to our water to make it more tasty or associate it with a certain action that we love or things like that? So I wanted to kind of think through those: the cue, the craving, the response, and the reward. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about hydration. I won't go on too long because you guys know a lot about hydration already, but just hitting the basics of why do we want to stay hydrated? So for digestion, for improved digestion, we have to drink enough water. For our skin, especially this time of year, we get dried out if we're not drinking enough water. For our kidneys to function, for if we want to feel alert and awake, Often we turn to caffeine or something like that, but water is really, really helpful for our mental acuity as well. And so there's lots of reasons why. I think most people know why they should drink water. It's not always the thing that they go to of like, this is happening. Oh, I should probably drink more water. So it's something to be aware of. And then some of the barriers that I feel like people come across, I know I do this time of year, is just I don't get as thirsty because it's not hot. We're not sweating. And so being aware of that and making a little more effort to stay hydrated, because you know your body's maybe not going to be telling you as much as it normally would during the summer. I think a lot of times people that we work with too, as we age, our that like hormone response that tells us that we're thirsty, it starts to decline. And so just being more consistent with just making it a pattern to be drinking enough water. And then the biggest one that I feel like I see as a misconception a lot of the time is I just need to chug more just water. And that's where understanding how hydration works comes into play. So we need water to flush through our kidneys, right? And that's important, but we also need water inside the cell. And so we're just chugging water. A lot of people complain about, well, and I'm just in the bathroom all day long because I'm just drinking a ton of water. And that's okay. Like our kidneys need to be filtered and have that water run through them. But to be like fully hydrated, we need that water in and out of the cell. It can like take waste in and out of the cell, all of that. And so that's when we need our sodium and potassium primarily. And I think that's what, there's been a increase. I mean, we've got like, there's a lot of companies out there now making beverages for like us, right? Not the athletes. We're not talking about Gatorade. We're not talking about Powerade, who like you see that, you know, athletes are drinking that because they know they need to be replenished. But I find that a lot of people who are just like us are just drinking a lot of water and then potentially not getting the benefits of like real hydration. So thinking about prioritizing sodium and potassium when you drink water to be really well hydrated and to help prevent the, I gotta go to the bathroom every 30 minutes because I'm trying to drink that water that I know I'm supposed to drink, which the recommendation is half your body weight in ounces. That's generally what we recommend to stay hydrated. On top of that, I would say to prioritize the sodium potassium. Your potassium's inside your cell, your sodium's outside the cell. They kind of work together to keep water in and out of the cell. Really easy way. I know we've all been told to stop using salt, right? It's been a big kind of promotion for blood pressure and things like that. But we're talking like real mineral salt, putting that in your water to help bring that water to the cell. A couple of different brands could be Redmond's Real Salt is a really good brand. It's mineral salt, so they haven't done anything to it. Nothing's been stripped out of it. A lot of people like the Himalayan sea salt. Just looking for an unrefined salt to use because there's going to be a lot more minerals in that. And it could be as easy as like just sprinkling it in your water when you pour your cup of water. And then potassium is a little more tricky to get. We often recommend that people use coconut water because there's potassium in coconut water. You can sprinkle some sea salt in that, add a splash of whatever juice that you like to make it flavored, and that's a good hydration beverage once or twice a day. But other than that, you can just sprinkle some of that mineral salt in. If you can taste it, you probably put too much. We don't want too much sodium, but enough to kind of keep that hydration going. So, any thoughts from you guys as you guys have worked on increasing hydration, ways that you've done it?
What about, you said Himalayan and the Redmond's Real Salt. What about like Celtic salt?
Yeah, I think that's unrefined.
Okay.
Yeah, as long as it's an unrefined, they're not stripping the minerals away. it's a good option.
No, I mean, I like where you're going with it because you see the panels as much as I do. And we see people who are showing up dehydrated,
Mhm.
but we talk to them and they're drinking a
Mhm.
ton of water.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a lot, and they're still experiencing the issues of dehydration,
Right.
even though they're consuming it. It's just going through them.
Mhm.
So I think what you're bringing up is incredibly important
Yeah.
for a lot of people because I'm running into they are consuming. I mean, maybe not a perfect half their body weight, but
Yeah.
they're getting
A
darn
lot.
close.
Yeah, and they're like, I'm in the bathroom all day long. And I'm like, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And even like, we're starting to do more IV therapy.
Mhm.
We don't just give somebody water in an IV, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Dr. Sharp, you can probably talk to that too of like
Mhm.
why it's made the way like those IV solutions are made is because they're better absorbed and used that way with the saline in there. So it's just bringing that down to what we can do every day to help stay hydrated.
Yeah, I think that's so. I like what you were just saying because again, whenever we started with some of the adrenal cocktails, they're talking about like it tasting too salty. So you're
Mhm.
actually saying like in general, you shouldn't be able to taste the salt.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, especially if you're just doing it throughout the day. Now,
Yes.
we have a product that we use here called an adrenal cocktail, and that's normally for if I've found on blood work that somebody is really, really low in sodium and potassium, or their adrenal function is low. Sodium and potassium help to regulate the adrenal function as well, and so I have people take a larger dose.
Mhm.
But if we're just talking about day in, day out hydration, if you're just sprinkling it in your water, yeah, you probably shouldn't be able to taste it, or you're over the day, you'll probably consume too much.
Yeah. And I mean, I know it's kind of been funny because we've all adopted the cups.
Yeah.
And that, I mean,
Love the cups.
and I will say that's been amazing because, I've done the ones where, that you get the gallon and you have to work your way through the gallon. That's just daunting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what it is about the size of those cups, but like you just fill it up twice a day. Like, okay, I can do that. I can, and it
And the
doesn't,
straw, something about the straw.
something about the straw.
Even when I worked like in long-term care, I mean, everybody got straws.
Yeah.
Unless they had swallowing difficulties, that was different. But like, they just consumed more if they were drinking out of a straw. And I know I do. If I'm not drinking out of a straw, I don't drink
Mhm.
half as much.
Yeah.
It's what I am, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to talk about, I think caffeine and things like that gets talked about a lot with hydration. I was reading a study yesterday, just that they've shown that maybe it doesn't have as much of an impact as we thought, like especially like teas and things like that. They don't have as much caffeine. Obviously, we don't want to just be drinking coffee all day long. We're not going to like get enough hydration from that water in the coffee, but it's okay to have some of that interspersed. And in fact, during the winter, it's sometimes easier for people to drink warmer beverages. So
True.
drinking teas and things like that can be helpful for staying hydrated, especially when it's cold outside.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
That resonates with just experience.
Mhm.
Because whenever you're drinking a lot of hot teas and everything, you feel really good. Like
Yeah.
you feel like you're getting.
It's a little bit of hydration.
Yeah, you don't feel like you're getting dehydrated.
Yeah.
I know how I feel. You feel like you can definitely tell with coffee and
Yeah.
some of these other things.
Yeah.
You feel that, but I've always wondered because I'm like, man, hot tea is just it sure feels good.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
that's encouraging
Yeah.
that they're finding that.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm kind of curious because, like, again, this career, we've a lot of us have kind of come along in our journey with hydration. I hate to say it, but the cup has been the biggest thing for me. I know we've had this discussion. I mean, anybody else, like, as far as like your progression?
I would have to say the adrenal cocktail too.
Mhm.
So when I first started here, almost 2 years ago, I wasn't doing anything like that outside of maybe having like a Gatorade here and there, like if I was working out.
Yeah, and you're super active too. Which
And I
means
was
you're-
drinking like probably 80 ounces of water a day or more. And I had the same complaint that all of our patients have about I'm constantly going to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And so once I started using the adrenal cocktail,
Mhm.
I don't have to go as often,
Yeah.
and I feel like I'm actually hydrated. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
And even how you sharing outside of just what we had here and like sharing your recipe with the coconut water and stuff.
Yeah.
Lucas and I have been making that,
Yeah.
especially when we go for our hikes and we have
Mhm.
a liter of iced adrenal cocktail.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, it kind of just almost feels like our muscles are just kind of being replenished.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Yeah, I'm gonna try the game changer for this discussion for me is gonna be I can sprinkle a little Himalayan salt into my water during the day because the adrenal cocktail thing is just, I'm not a huge fan.
Dr. Boyd.
Oh,
He doesn't like it either.
Yeah, but he
yeah.
likes the element tea, which is also really salty.
It's actually
Yeah.
saltier.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
It's
It's very
flavor,
excited.
it's flavor.
That's the thing, I mean, hot tea, like having a lot of green tea.
Yeah.
And I like it hot and cold. And I could see with, like hot tea, I don't mind if there's peppermint or chamomile or, other stuff in it. Whereas water, I want it to taste like water. And when it
Yeah.
starts tasting like salt water,
Yeah.
then I'm like, yeah, this is not my thing.
Yeah, try the sprinkle, and if you don't taste it, then you're still getting a little bit.
So over the course of the day, because I've been drinking, 80 ounces a day minimum.
How many is that of your big cup? 2 or 3?
Two.
2.
Yeah, two. So it's two, and I try to hit 100 if I can. So some days I'll do 3 of these and that kind of thing. So over the course of a day, how much salt, like how much Himalayan salt should you be consuming?
So in the adrenal cocktail, I think there's about 1/4 of a teaspoon.
Okay.
So over the day, you could do 1/4 of a teaspoon,
So
which
we're
is
talking
literally
about,
just pinches.
we're talking about literally
Pinches,
just a
yeah.
little. Okay, I can absolutely do that
Yeah.
because that's the thing is I don't eat a lot of salt. I try to avoid salty foods.
Yeah.
So this whole,
Yeah, which is another discussion, and I didn't touch on that because it's like, yes, our processed like restaurant foods, things like that, are full of just sodium.
Right.
Whereas when we're doing like the mineral salt, we're getting benefits from that it's outside of just like 1,500 milligrams of
Right.
sodium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the potassium piece of that though, so what would you do about getting more potassium if you just sprinkle a little salt in your water during that?
I think the salt's the first piece of the puzzle for a lot of people because it helps like bring that water into the cell. I like the coconut water, but then also just prioritizing potassium-rich foods. So a lot of your fruits and veggies. Yeah, your avocados, your bananas. If you like coconut has a lot of potassium. Potatoes have potassium in them. So just making sure you're getting enough. So I think the ratio of, I don't know off the top of my head what that ratio is, but it's more sodium than potassium. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I think as long as you're prioritizing those potassium rich
The idea here, the operative idea is that putting a little bit of sprinkle of sodium, a sprinkle of salt in your water is going to help it stay intracellular instead of basically peeing it out all the time because it's your third space. So,
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of our patients actually have issues with that. They are retaining a lot of extracellular fluid. And then we get into diuretics and things like that, which is tricky. It's a very tricky, like once we have medications involved and things. But if you're not on diuretics, it's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we can definitely, an easy one back to habits, because most of us here, we fill up, we're making half of our hydration definitely while we're here.
Yeah.
If not,
Yeah.
the majority of our hydration
Oh, yeah.
before we leave.
It's like half of it by lunch.
Lunch. And I mean, most of us need to stop hydrating by about, I know I have to stop hydrating around 6, if I'm going to make it through the night. So, when you think about like, okay, we're at work, we're going to get most of our hydration at work, which I will say at home, it does suffer.
Yeah.
It's not.
The structure of your
Yeah,
day,
it is very interesting. So one of the things I'm looking at is almost all of us refill in our kitchen here. So I'll grab one of the Himalayan salt shakers and we'll just keep that right next to so we can all just put our little pinch in. That's an easy habit. That's an easy trigger.
Yeah.
And I think you're right about I know for me, I noticed that if I don't make a conscious effort, like here, I get here at, 8, 40.
Yeah.
Fill up my water, and so I'm drinking all through the day,
Mhm.
and it's easy for me to knock off 80 to 100 ounces or plus of water and be done by dinner.
Mhm.
And and then it's like, okay, I've finished everything by 6 p.m. and then I'm not up all night, peeing.
Right.
On the weekends when I'm not here,
Mhm.
It's a little different.
We have to find a cue. We have to find a cue.
I consciously,
Yeah.
It's
because
hard.
if I make myself, okay, come out of the gate strong here. And so what I've started doing is my cue has been, okay, as I put my cup of coffee to brew in my first cup of coffee, I fill my water bottle up.
Yeah.
And, and to make myself start drinking water before I start drinking coffee. And then it just, because if I just start,
Yeah.
it's not too
That's a
bad.
good point.
What ends up happening is it's noon and I'm like, oh, I've not been drinking enough
Yeah.
water. And then you can't catch up.
Right.
Yeah.
I have that same process on the weekends and even on the weekdays, I hit brew on the coffee because that's the habit. It's like
Mhm.
make your own coffee and then churn and fill up my cup
Mhm.
and make sure I drink at least like one glass of water before I start consuming my
So
coffee.
you've created cues.
Yeah.
That's kind of like his thing. Is like if you create a cue, it doesn't have to be that water is the cue.
Yeah.
It's something else is the cue, and then that triggers you to do the next thing. So yeah, you guys are already doing that.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
So I've got a Himalayan salt shaker sitting right there. I just started using it.
Yeah. Yeah, no dash. So at least during work days, I think we got it. Now we just have to figure out the other half of the week.
Yeah.
4 days are covered.
So some of the things that, like, just to kind of summarize, some of the things that you guys have done has been the fun cups. This is Jordan's cup.
Mm-hmm.
Super fun, super cute. And then, yeah, having like a large cup that has at least half of what you need. That makes it easier. Yeah, the attractive piece is like the fun cups.
This is
Courtney
the
has
best
her.
cup ever.
Courtney and Ashley have their bright pink.
Hydro.
Yes, the hydro jugs.
yeah.
Yes, those are awesome.
I love this thing.
Yeah,
The
and
spill
then-
proof tops have become real, yeah.
The satisfying piece, I guess, talking through that. I mean, I know I feel better
Mhm.
when I'm hydrated. But that's something that I have to consciously like kind of cue into. And so what are some other like satisfying, if you guys can think of any other, like, what's the reward piece?
Yeah.
I can always tell, this might sound crazy, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I can always tell if my lips are dry, I'm dehydrated. Like I need more water.
Yeah.
So like especially if I'm out hiking or doing something, like if that's happening, like I need to drink water. So that's a cue for me to
Yeah.
reach for my cup.
Yeah. And the reward is not having
Chapped lips.
chocolates.
Yeah.
Headaches.
Mhm.
When I was on active duty in the military, they used to, when we were out on maneuvers, they would say, if you get a headache, drink a canteen full of water. That was always in the can. And so that was something I've noticed, that if I'm on the dry side, I'll, have headache issues.
Same here.
I mean, again, it's not a reward, but one of the things I get what I think is hungry, but I'm thirsty. I swear I'm hungry and I want food, but I'm like, I just ate.
Mhm.
There's no way I can be hungry. And most of the time, then you drink a bunch of water and you're fine. So that's not necessarily a reward, but it's just also thinking like
Mhm.
the trigger. And well, to some extent, it's satisfying because you're like, good, I didn't.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that, I agree, same thing
Yeah.
happens to me. I wonder how much of that is stomach distension, It's like, the message of, you
Yeah, if you didn't eat a large
you
volume.
could slurp down a burrito, have a zillion calories and hardly take up any space at all. Drink a whole big thing of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is. So, yeah. So just not feeling horrible, but
Yes.
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say for me, hydration has been harder because you don't have like the instant gratification,
Mhm.
except for when you're really dehydrated.
Yeah,
When you're really dehydrated, it's so.
Mhm.
But whenever you're trying to get to your like when you're at 80 ounces, your ounces like 60 to 100, there's not much satisfaction.
Yeah.
Like at those, but I mean, but yeah, then you start looking at it long term. Your skin looks better, you
Mhm.
feel better.
And I think about too, like being aware of like this as a piece of the puzzle.
Yes.
I feel like we get a lot of people who are like, I feel this, this, and this. And you start asking about some of the basics and you're like, okay, we can start with, and then I slow down. I'm like, oh, I feel horrible. And then, yeah, you think, oh, I have just been going and I didn't bring, I'm better at it now, much better at it now. But yeah, ability and strength, and that makes a difference.
Yeah. It's a huge difference.
And so just being aware of that, even, here of, it sounds too basic, but sometimes it's not.
I ask it all the time.
Especially this time of year.
Yeah.
And that's why we like the soups and stuff, because that's also hydrating and we crave those things too. So
I like it. Very good. Awesome.
awesome.
Wonderful. All right. Very good.
See you next week.
Yeah. See you all next week.